Have you ever stood in a room full of strangers, watching the person you love most in the world crumble, and felt absolutely nothing but cold, hard satisfaction? I have. The air in the funeral home was thick with the scent of lilies and quiet grief, but all I could focus on was the sound of my wife's ragged breathing as she stared at the obituary in her hands. She thought she was attending her lover's funeral in secret. She had no idea I was the one who wrote it. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. Our story began like a Chicago fairy tale. I met Isabel at a summer festival in Lincoln Park. She was vibrant, ambitious, and had a laugh that could cut through the city noise. We married 2 years later, bought a beautiful brownstone in Old Town, and built what I thought was a perfect life. I adored her. I would have done anything for her, and for a long time I thought she felt the same. The first cracks appeared subtly. It started with her working late. Isabel was a high-powered consultant, so late nights weren't unusual. But then late nights at the office became client dinners, which turned into weekend strategy sessions. She became distant, a ghost in our home. When she was there, she was glued to her phone, smiling at the screen with a warmth she no longer showed me. One evening, I tried to hug her as she was getting ready for yet another work event. She flinched, pulling away as if my touch burned her. "Don't," she said, her voice like ice. "You'll wrinkle my dress." That night I felt a deep, gut-wrenching humiliation. I was a stranger to my own wife. Her strange behavior escalated. She started guarding her phone like it held state secrets. She'd take calls in the other room, her voice a low murmur. Once, a receipt fell out of her purse from the signature room at the 95th, a place known for its romantic views. When I asked her about it, she waved it off dismissively. Well, that was a client meeting, so boring. But the receipt was for 2 cocktails and a dessert meant for sharing. The slow, agonizing discovery began. One night, she left her laptop open. A chat window was visible. It was with a man named Marcus. The messages were explicit. They talked about their last meeting at the Drake Hotel, about the way he held her, the things he made her feel. My heart hammered against my ribs. I read through months of their conversations, a timeline of my own foolishness. He was a wealthy client of hers, smug and condescending, even in text. They mocked me. They called me the loyal puppy, the safe bet. They laughed about how clueless I was, how easy it was to deceive me. Isabel, my Isabel, was the cruelest of all. She wrote things about me that shattered me, describing our life as a cage she couldn't wait to escape. That was the night I broke. I went into our bathroom, looked at my reflection, and didn't recognize the hollowed-out man staring back. I slid down the cold tile wall, the laptop burning in my lap, and I cried. Not loud but silent, gut-wrenching sobs that left me empty. The love I felt for her curdled into something else, something dark and cold. She came home hours later, humming, and walked right past me without a glance. In that moment, her fate was sealed. The broken man got up, but a strategist took his place. My grief turned to fuel. I became a ghost myself, observing, collecting. I used my tech skills to discreetly mirror her phone's data to a secure cloud account. Every text, every photo, every hotel booking was saved. I hired a private investigator who documented their meetings with crystal-clear photos and videos. I saw them kissing against the backdrop of the Chicago Riverwalk, saw them checking into boutique hotels on the Gold Coast. I learned everything about Marcus. He was married too, with a powerful family, who valued their public image above all else, was arrogant, reckless, and felt untouchable. Both of them did. They were so wrapped up in their own selfish world they never once looked over their shoulders. While gathering evidence, I played the part of the devoted, slightly oblivious husband. I made her breakfast. I asked about her day. I let her spin her web of lies, each one another thread in the trap I was weaving. I consulted a divorce attorney, one of the most ruthless in the city. We structured a plan. With the mountain of evidence I had, infidelity, misuse of shared funds for her affair, we could ensure she would get nothing. Absolutely nothing. Brownstone, our savings, everything we had built, it was all protected. Then, fate handed me the perfect stage. One morning, I saw an email on our shared tablet. It was an alert from a news site. Marcus had suffered a massive, fatal heart attack while jogging along the lakefront. He was gone. I watched Isabel's face as she read the news later that day. She turned pale, stumbling back and catching herself on the kitchen counter. She locked herself in the guest room, and I could hear her muffled sobs. She told me a close colleague had passed away and she needed space. I gave it to her. The next day, my plan went into its final devastating phase. I found his obituary online. It was a standard, corporate-sounding piece put together by his family. Using an anonymous email and a prepaid credit card, I contacted the funeral home and the local newspaper. I told them I was a representative for a branch of the family that had been overlooked and that there were additions to be made to the obituary. I paid a handsome fee to have it revised and reprinted in the program for the funeral service. The day of the funeral arrived, Isabel dressed in a somber black dress, telling me she was going to support her grieving team. I just nodded and said, "Take all the time you need." I arrived at the funeral home an hour after her, staying in the back unseen. The room was filled with Chicago's elite Marcus's family, his wife, his business partners. I watched as Isabel took a program, her face a mask of careful sorrow, and I saw her eyes scan the text. I knew the exact moment she reached the final paragraph, the one I wrote. It read, "Marcus is survived by his loving wife, Jennifer, his 2 children, and his devoted mistress of 2 years. Isabel Miller, who he often referred to as his true soulmate. Isabel stood by him during his most challenging times and shared his dreams for a future together. It was his final wish that her role in his life be acknowledged." I had his own words from their texts twisted into a public tribute. A gasp escaped her lips. The program fluttered from her numb fingers. Heads turned. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Marcus's wife, a stern, elegant woman, turned and fixed her gaze on Isabel, her eyes filled with pure venom. People started pulling out their phones, looking at Isabel, then back at the obituary. Her carefully constructed world was imploding in real time. She looked around, panicked, her eyes frantically searching the crowd. Our eyes met. For a split second, she looked confused. Then, as she saw the cold, empty look on my face, she understood. Everything, the setup, the public humiliation, my presence there. It all crashed down on her. Her face crumpled, not in grief for her dead lover, but in the sheer horror of her own destruction. She let out a choked sob and fled the room, a parade of judgmental eyes following her every step. I didn't follow. I just stood there, in the quiet chaos I had orchestrated. I went home to our house, to her empty closets, and the lingering scent of her perfume, and I felt nothing. The love was gone. The hate was gone. All that was left was the chilling silence of a perfectly executed ending. It's been a year, and sometimes I wonder if she ever recovered, but the thought passes as quickly as it comes. The end.